I want to hear from you as well, badly on this actually. Do you support Boris Johnson's deal? What do you actually want to happen tomorrow? But actually, I think this is probably the most important question for today. What do you think will go down tomorrow? Because there's all sorts of political machinations going on, all sorts of potential amendments. We're going to explore it all over the next 3 hours ahead of a very consequential 24 hours in British politics. But I'm joined first now by Ranil Jayawardena, who is the Vice Chair of the Conservative Party and also the MP for North East Hampshire. Ranil, thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, this was, no matter what happens tomorrow, this was a moment for Boris Johnson and the Tories, wasn't it? So many people accusing you guys of having some secret campaign for a no deal, not being serious about getting a deal, and then you delivered.
Well, absolutely. This is a real Brexit deal. It's what we've been waiting for, and it takes back control, which is what we promised to the people in the referendum 3 years ago. So I totally agree with what you've said, Dan. It's now time for MPs to come together, for the country to be able to be united again and to get Brexit done by the 31st of October.
You're Vice Chair of the party. How are the numbers looking?
Well, there's so many ideas out there. The whips are obviously having conversations on both sides of Parliament, Labour and Conservative. I'm not here to comment about that, but I think it's really important that all MPs really do consider what this deal does, because this deal does ensure that we take back control of our laws, our trade, our borders, our money. Those are the things that the country voted for. 17.4 million people voted for, as you said a moment ago, in the biggest democratic exercise in our country's history. So if we are Democrats, if we are to respect the will of the people, then this is a deal that we need to get through Parliament so that we can leave on the 31st of October. And he's achieved what many people said was impossible. So it is possible now to secure a Brexit deal on the 31st of October and leave the EU without disruption and without delay, and leave in a friendly way.
Ranil, what's your relationship like with the Tory big names who lost the whip? So I'm talking about the likes of Philip Hammond, Amber Rudd. Are you still in communication with them on a personal level?
As it happens, I saw Amber only on Tuesday this week, and we had a conversation. Look, I think it's really important that we don't try and tie anyone to any particular label. Actually, on the vast majority of things, Amber and I, Philip Hammond and I, would agree that we are Conservatives. We believe in allowing people to decide how to live their own lives, in taxing people less, but also investing money in things like 20,000 new police on our streets. And so it's so important, in my view, that the whole of the party comes together to get this deal through, because then we can, as a country and as a party in Parliament, move on to the issues that matter to people. So more police on our streets, supporting our schools, every classroom getting a boost, and getting money to the front line of the NHS. These are the things that Boris wants to do, but we can't do that until we've left the European Union.
So on that note, though, if people like Amber Rudd and Philip Hammond were to vote for this deal tomorrow, do you see that as their path back into the party?
Well, I very much hope that colleagues who have lost the whip at this moment in time will be able to come back to the party in due course. But that's not a matter that's within my gift, and that is something that is for the Chief Whip and the Prime Minister themselves. I certainly believe that we can all work together to get this done, and that's the issue right now. We need to get Brexit done.
Ranil, what's your gut feeling? Because obviously you were a great reader of politics. Do you think you will get the numbers? Because most people agree this is on a knife edge right now. It is incredibly close.
Look, I think you are absolutely right. This is going to be a close-running thing. No one who says otherwise, can say that with any certainty. I hope we can get this through. I think that the numbers are there. I think there are good people on both sides of the House who can see this through and make sure that we can leave the European Union on the 31st. I believe there are good people on both sides who recognise that we've got to end the supremacy of the European Court of Justice across this country. I believe there are good people on both sides who recognise that the anti-democratic backstop has been abolished now, and it is possible to vote for this deal in good conscience. So I'm very hopeful that we can get this through, but ultimately we will have to see what Saturday brings.
And I mean, I'm loath to even ask this question, to be honest, because many of us don't even want to countenance the possibility. But what if the deal isn't passed on Saturday? What next?
Much like you, I don't want to countenance that prospect. My focus right now is doing what I can to make sure that this deal gets through, that Brexit gets done, that we take back control, and we can move on to the things that really matter. If the deal does not get through, then the people that have not voted for it have then potentially set out more clearly than ever before that really what they are standing for is never to leave the European Union. And certainly that is what some of those in the Labour Party are now revealing about themselves, that they are, in effect, simply standing to remain in the European Union. But let's be positive about this. Let's say, it is possible to get away from the dither and delay that Jeremy Corbyn offers by following what Boris has secured against all the odds. And by doing that, by getting Brexit done, we can then focus on the priorities that really make a difference. So there is a positive way forward.
Well, good luck. That's Ranil Jayawardena, who is the Vice Chair of the Conservative Party and also an MP for North East Hampshire. Do you agree? 0344 499 1000 is my number. Of course, love getting your text messages too. Just text talk, then what you want to say, send it to 87222. Or you can tweet us as well at Talk Radio. But we're hearing from all sides of politics today, and I'm joined now by Christine Jardine. She is the Lib Dem MP for Edinburgh West and also their Home Affairs spokeswoman. Christine, what's so bad about this deal? I thought what most Remainers were really nervous about was a no-deal Brexit.
Well, where would you like me to start about what's wrong with this deal? I mean, it's a worse deal than Theresa May.
Why? Why is it? I don't get that. I don't see how it's worse.
This border in the Irish Sea is not good. I mean, you've got the DUP saying they don't want it. And yes, you're right.
Yeah, but come on, you're a Lib Dem MP. You don't care what the DUP have to say. They're extremists. You can't all of a sudden latch onto their argument, can you? They're homophobic extremists in that party.
I'm not latching onto their argument. I was just about to say they dislike it for the same reason that most Scots dislike it, which is that it undermines the position of the UK. If you have a border between part of the UK, customs border, any kind of border really between part of the UK and another part of the UK, then you begin to break up the United Kingdom. And
there's no
that is not what I believe in. And I think you're absolutely right when you say that what's made us most nervous is the idea of no deal. That would be disastrous. I mean, even the government's own papers say that. But there is no deal which is as good as the one which we have with the European Union. And I think for Boris to pretend otherwise is not being quite fair, because we do know that the deal we have is better actually than a lot of other European countries have. Now, what I have said for 3.5 years and what has been said by my party for 3.5 years is that whatever the final deal is, whatever the detail is, it should go back to the British public for them to have the final say. And that actually is what I would like to see happen, is for this deal to go back to the public.
But in a dream world, you would just revoke Article 50 and not put it to a vote at all.
Oh, we would have to have a vote of some description before we did that. We would have to have either a referendum or a general election. And I think what we have to get the Prime Minister to do is to abide by the law. and go and ask for an extension in order to
Well, you
get
don't
this
know
thing.
if we need that.
Because I
yet,
don't
though.
think
But look,
it's
can I just go
through tomorrow.
But can I just go back to the Northern
Yes,
Irish
sir.
border issue, because
Yeah.
it's an important one, because that's
It is.
what this vote really hinges on. And I was so struck today by David Trimble's comment, because this is the former First Minister of Northern Ireland. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for his work on the Good Friday Agreement. He was so opposed to the backstop, Christine Jardine. He said the backstop would wreck the Good Friday Agreement. So this is not some Tory party stooge when it comes to Brexit.
No.
But he is entirely happy with this new arrangement. He says it is fully in accordance with the spirit of the Good Friday Agreement.
I don't agree. The Good Friday Agreement said that there should be no hard border and there would be no way of avoiding having something. But as I've said, my main gripe with the part of this deal which affects Northern Ireland, which affects the entire United Kingdom, is this idea of a border in the Irish Sea between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom. If you're going to have a border in the Irish Sea and a different customs arrangement for Northern Ireland, then the question arises, what about Scotland and Wales? And for that matter, London, all of whom wanted to stay within the European Union. So we have a problem with this proposal of Boris's in that it is a threat to undermining the United Kingdom. And, coming from the Conservative and Unionist Party, to see them kind of willing to throw part of what they're supposed to stand for aside, throw it under the bus for this, I think is unacceptable. And I would hope that my Conservative colleagues from Scotland would support us in this, in opposing that, because it will be bad for Scotland and it will be bad for the rest of the United Kingdom. And
Christine,
I think the time has come when we have to say that the only way of stopping Brexit and this madness, which is sucking the lifeblood out of British politics and society, is just to stop it. It's bad for us.
Christine, final question. Sadly for you, public opinion seems to be very much turning against Remain. A ComRes poll for Channel 5, and by the way, I don't necessarily take these polls that seriously all that often, but this surveyed 25,000 people this week. 50% now say they want to leave, 40% say they want to remain. But the key point for me is when they're asked a slightly different question, do you think that the 2016 referendum result should be honoured? 54% said yes, and just 32% said no. Do you not concede that we are now a country that wants to move on? Even the Remainers say enough is enough. Stop this misery. Vote for the deal. Let's move on.
Yes, but the way of stopping the misery is not to do it. Because if you go for the deal, that's not stopping it. That's the first step. You'll have another 10 years of trade deals and debates and more of this energy sapping nonsense, which is bad for the economy, it's bad for trade, it's bad for our position in the world, it's bad for you and I, it affects jobs, the prices in our pocket. And nobody is saying that we should ignore the result of the 2016 referendum.
Yes, you are. You want to revoke Article 50. That's exactly what you want to do. The Lib Dems want to revoke Article 50.
If I could finish, we have said for 3 years that we want a referendum. We want the people to have the final say. If we're not going to get that referendum and there's going to be a general election, then we will go into that general election, make it absolutely clear that if we win a majority, then we will revoke Article 50. But our preference is, and always has been, to take the choice back to the people, either in a referendum or if we can't have that, then in a general election. But it started with the people, it has to finish with the people. They have to have the final say.
That's Christine Jardine. She's the Lib Dem MP for Edinburgh West and their Home Affairs spokeswoman as well. Do you know what I'd say to that? I would say if the Lib Dems get over 17.4 million votes in a general election, then they can revoke Article 50 and say they have a mandate to do so. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Of course, throughout the day, we are asking whether you support Boris Johnson's deal. And what on earth do you want to happen tomorrow? 0344 499 1000. But as I say, all angles covered on this show. After the break, Brexit Party MEP Ben Habib on why the Brexit Party are against this deal. Welcome back to Talk Radio. Of course, we are discussing Boris Johnson's deal, whether you support it, what you want to happen tomorrow throughout the show. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, will be here soon. But all angles covered today. So joined now by Ben Habib. He is the Brexit Party MEP. Ben, I believe, like your leader, Nigel Farage, you do not support Boris Johnson's deal. Why?
Well, it doesn't really give us Brexit. You know, it is an improvement on Theresa May's deal. It removes the ability for the European Union to use the backstop as a mechanism to force on us awful future trading arrangements. But actually, the substance of the withdrawal agreement, with the exception of the backstop, is the same. And the political declaration has a lot of the pitfalls in it that the old political declaration had, such as a level playing field, having to comply with EU state aid rules, competition law, tax law, having to commit our military to them to the extent possible under EU law and subject to ECJ oversight. You know, so there's a whole host of things that you just wouldn't expect an independent sovereign state to have to commit to in order to leave a union.
So that means essentially Brexit Party wants a no deal or nothing. No deal Brexit is the only way forward to get your support.
Well, there's no reason why the free trade agreement needed to have any wording about level playing field or any commitment to comply with their state aid laws or their taxation laws. These are very unusual constraints to foist on a third-party nation when doing a trade deal. And, you know, it's just wrong. So ideally, we'd like a simple free trade agreement. You could exit under a GATT-24 kind of two-page back of the envelope sort of agreement just to keep tariffs at zero while we thrash out a free trade agreement. But this thing binds us into the European Union. It's almost as if they want us to rejoin in a couple of years' time.
Shouldn't the Brexit Party actually be taking credit for this deal? You know, it has been your pressure on the right, your pressure in the European elections, your pressure at the local elections that has really helped push the Tories towards electing Boris Johnson, towards pushing to reopen the withdrawal agreement, towards pushing away from a second referendum. But don't you think most Brexiteers are just going to think, in this case, you're actually putting Brexit, the very idea of Brexit, in peril if you don't support this deal?
Well, the question... Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and we all feel very battle-weary. You know, I'm exhausted by the whole thing. But
and you've done a lot. You have made a difference.
We have made a difference, absolutely. And, you know, if we hadn't, probably by now we would have been having a second referendum with Theresa May's deal being on the ticket. So, you know,
absolutely,
it's kind of you to say so. You know, it's kind of you to say so, and I think we have done a lot. But that doesn't mean that we should not call something out that's bad when it is bad. I think... You know, we are obliged, nevertheless, just to make it clear to everyone, including most pertinently Brexiteers, you know, that there are pitfalls in this agreement which we may come to regret.
So how do you react then, Ben? How does the party react? And I know it's on a knife edge, things are very tight. But how do you react if this deal is passed? Because does it not mean that there might be this almost quite surreal situation where Nigel Farage, your leader, the man who most people in this country, whether they love him or hate him, credit with driving Brexit into the mainstream, will be commiserating over the fact that Boris Johnson would have delivered Brexit?
Well, if this deal passes, we will need to reconvene and think what we do. But our aim would be to bring maximum pressure on the government to ensure that the trade arrangements going forward don't reflect what's in the political declaration at the moment, and that we can get as much leeway as a country to allow us to act like a sovereign state. And we would also wish to keep the time period for the transition down to a minimum. One of the drawbacks is that even though the withdrawal agreement contemplates a transition until the end of December 2020, actually it could go on. And during that period, we would be members of the single market, members of the EU customs union, subject to new EU laws, subject to ECJ rulings, and have no voice, no veto, no influence. So they could pass a whole host of laws that could be bad for us. So our aim would be to keep the transition period to a minimum, get us out of the EU ASAP, and to put pressure on the government to try and change the political declaration or the terms of the eventual trading agreement, so that they don't.
But I
reflect the
guess if
terms
this
of the
deal
current political
passed, though, Ben, what you're saying is that the Brexit Party fight continues. The Brexit Party will not be folding.
I think on the terms of this deal, we'll continue to do the very best we can to get the very best terms for the United Kingdom.
Interesting. So the Brexit Party could be a force for many years to come. That is Ben Habib, Brexit Party MEP. Of course, we have lots more to come on the show on this. I'd love to hear from you as well. 0344 499 1000. Do you support Boris Johnson's deal? What do you want to happen tomorrow? As the show goes on, we're going to be hearing from Jack Dromey. He's Labour's Shadow Pensions Minister. Also from Priti Patel. She is the Home Secretary. The SNP will be here. And so will Femi Oluwole, my favourite Remain campaigner. It's always an interesting discussion with Femi. I imagine he'll be sobbing into his champagne tomorrow night with all of his fellow champagne socialists if this deal does pass. Welcome back to Talk Radio. It is 4:36. We're about to count down the 5 biggest stories of the week in the Friday Five, joined this week by Laurie-Anne Power, the barrister. Great to have you back, Laurie-Anne. What a week it has been.
What a week indeed.
But before we do that, bit of breaking news, as you heard in the news there with James Nish. And do you know what? The Extinction Rebellion, well, I wasn't going to talk about them today, actually. I thought I did my dash last week. I've written my column in The Sun about them tomorrow, and I wasn't going to give them any of the extra publicity, but I've done exactly what they need to do to hijack the news agenda. And right now, there is a 49-year-old tree surgeon. Sky News is reporting that he's called Ben Atkinson, and he's doing this thing that they call a free solo on Big Ben. Now, I would say that is an idiotic move that is not only putting his own safety at risk, but ours, actually, because how does he know about the state of that scaffolding? Dressed as Boris Johnson, which I'm sure all of the Champagne Socialists and the Extinction Rebellion will find very hilarious. One of them, of course, is my good friend, Dr. Emily Grossman from Scientists for Extinction Rebellion. Emily, our interview last week caused the Extinction Rebellion of London to launch a massive protest outside the News UK building.
Hello. Good afternoon, Dan.
They weren't happy with me, were they?
I don't think it was single-handed, Dan, but,
Okay.
I'm not sure that was the entire reason. But, you could think so.
Well, I was just basing it on their tweet. But look, Emily, you must see a lunatic like this currently clambering up, who knows, without any wires or anything like that, up the scaffolding on Big Ben, or these idiots who got on the train at Canning Town Station, the Tube, yesterday, and you must feel ashamed of your Extinction Rebellion movement.
Actually, I don't at all. I think that the Canning Town incident was carried out by a group that is somewhat removed from most of the thinking in the Extinction Rebellion community. I have great respect for them for doing something that they believed was going to draw attention to the climate and ecological emergency, but I must clarify that actually I personally don't stand behind that move, and nor do a lot of people who are aligned with Extinction Rebellion. The incident today at Big Ben, Ben climbing the tower, I personally think it's not a show of lunacy. It's a show of someone who so passionately believes in the cause, which is to raise awareness of the climate and ecological emergency, so passionately knows the truth and wants to make sure everybody else knows it too. So, yes, it might seem a little crazy, but actually there are a lot of people out there whose lives are really being turned upside down by having found out the truth, by knowing the truth from climate scientists, and are doing really anything that they can in order to be able to live with themselves for knowing that truth and not doing everything they can.
Well, he better hope he survives this, because to me, this guy's a madman, because he's putting his own life at risk right now. So who is this Ben? Is it right that this is a 49-year-old tree surgeon called Ben Atkinson? Do you know him?
I don't personally. I'm on the ground in Trafalgar Square right now. We've been doing the red-handed rebellion this morning, where we've been drawing attention to the fact that actually we are all red-handed in this. We've been caught red-handed. So
what have you been doing? Been painting red over everything or something again?
No, we've been painting our hands in red and doing a solemn procession through Whitehall and through Westminster to acknowledge that actually we are all culpable for this, we are all responsible. This is something that we all need to take a look at our individual behaviour, but actually we can't, because we're living in a system where our governance, our society is in a fossil fuel economy, and actually really the only thing we can do is acknowledge that we are all part of the problem, but that actually really, in order to change that, it has to come structurally, it has to come from above, and it's only the government who can really get us out of this.
I hope you're not damaging any property with that red paint.
We're not. It's not paint, it's chalk. It washes off in the rain, so it's probably all gone if there was any on the ground, which I don't think there was. It's now raining right here in Trafalgar Square. You can probably hear the sploshing of the rain right now. So I would imagine that even if there was any on the ground, which I don't think there was, it will be gone by now. Mine's certainly just been washed off my hands.
Emily, do you not realise the past 7 days has been a disaster for the Extinction Rebellion? I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why. I'll tell you why. Okay. Because the people of Great Britain have finally said enough is enough. And there were a couple of key moments. There was that moment at Canning Town where we said, you know what? Let us get to work. Let us live our lives and let the government do what they're doing to make the UK the fastest developing economy in terms of reducing carbon emissions. That's the first thing. But the second thing is these absolute hypocritical champagne socialist celebrities who signed a letter this week holding up our hands. And do you know what they said, Dr. Emily Grossman? They said, yeah, we are hypocrites. Yeah, we are mass carbon emitters. But you know what? We are going to keep on flying first class. We're going to keep on eating our beef carpaccio. And we're going to keep on living in states like Monaco where we don't even pay tax to support what the UK is doing for carbon emissions. But we want you to change. We want you idiots to only fly once every 6 years. We want all of you to become vegans. And we're not going to do anything about it because we're going to be living in our second home mansions in California, earning millions of pounds from the likes of British Airways or fossil fuel guzzling car companies in India. And we've had enough.
Are you done? I don't actually think at all that that's what they've said. But, you know, if you want to repeat that, if you want to report that, that's actually false reporting. They have come forward to say, yes, as a society, we're all hypocrites. That's exactly what the Red-Handed Rebellion this morning was talking about. We are forced to be hypocrites because of the society we live in, hence why we can't actually do anything about it unless it's changed by the government. So,
why was Benedict Cumberbatch protesting with you lot and at the same time earning hundreds of thousands of pounds for supporting a car company in India where over 1 million people a year die because of air pollution?
So have you asked him whether he's still doing that?
He won't say a thing.
Okay, so
he just signed that letter saying, yep, I'm a hypocrite. What about Mel B? Emily Grossman, Dr. Emily Grossman, what about Melanie B, the Spice Girl, who I know for a fact was for a very long period taking 2 first-class flights a week between Los Angeles and London. 2 first-class flights a week because she wants to live in London and Los Angeles. And she signed that letter.
Why is this relevant? Why is any of this relevant to the fact that we're all...
Because these are the faces of your rebellion.
Sorry?
These are the hypocritical champagne socialist faces of your rebellion.
But is that really the point? Even if that were true, which I don't think it is that really the point? The point of Extinction Rebellion is to be raising awareness of the fact that we're going to be finished with our carbon budget globally within 8 years, and at which point we're going to be committing ourselves to devastating warming that's going to have a catastrophic impact on this country. Whether or not you agree with the so-called champagne socialists that you want to call them, which I think is actually not true what you're saying, but okay, whether or not you agree with them, why are we even asking that question? Why are we even focusing on these people?
Why are you targeting the UK? Why aren't you targeting the governments of China and the US and India? Because I actually looked at flights this week, Dr. Emily Grossman, and you know it's Americans that take 24% of carbon emitting flights. The UK is something like 4%. Why are you blaming us? Target the foreign governments.
Can you let me answer? You asked me this the other day and you didn't let me answer either. If you let me answer, I'll explain exactly why we're doing
Go on.
That. You are absolutely right that the UK emits 1.5% of the global carbon. You're spot on. What that doesn't incorporate...
And it's going down.
Can you let me finish? Because it's irrelevant.
Is it going down?
It's an irrelevant statistic because what we emit as the UK is not about what we emit on home turf. It's what we outsource to other countries. As a country, we outsource the majority of our carbon emissions to other low-income countries like India, like China, like less developed countries. We are investing billions of pounds in fossil fuel subsidies that come out of other countries. And we use most of our goods, our food, our manufacturing, our clothing gets flown in from other countries. So this 1.5%, which may all be going down a bit simply because we've moved from coal to oil in this country, is utterly irrelevant to this argument, because we are outsourcing our emissions, and the City of London are investing trillions of pounds in fossil fuel emissions from overseas. So your argument is a complete straw man argument. It's irrelevant to this topic.
I wish you'd celebrate the great stuff that we're doing.
The stuff we're doing is nothing to do with the government. It's to do with changing from coal to oil, to coal to gas. We are not doing anything great. The government have committed to bring down emissions, but an internal charter went in and found that out of the 24 goals that they put in place, only 7 of them were being even addressed. So actually the government are not doing that. They are lying to us. People who tell you emissions are going down are actually barking up completely the wrong tree, because it's completely irrelevant to actually what we are doing. The damage we're doing as a country, it's got nothing to do with this 1.5%, and it's got nothing to do with the fact it's come down from moving from coal to oil and to gas. Actually, we are bankrolling things like HS2, which is the biggest deforestation project since World War I. We're bankrolling billions of pounds in fossil fuel subsidies to overseas companies. We're bankrolling opening up new power stations, new turbines at the Drax power station. Everything that you're saying is completely irrelevant. Yes, it's true what you're saying, but it's got nothing to do with the global, with the carbon emissions that this country are responsible for, and it's got nothing to do with whether or not the government are taking action to address it, which they are categorically not doing.
Okay, so
if you say they are,
Dr.
it's hearsay. I'm telling you what's been reported on by the Committee for Climate Change. Your listeners can look it up. They can Google it. There's been reports on it. The Committee for Climate Change have gone in and they've said the government is simply not doing what they've committed to do. And even if they did do what they've committed to do, to bring to carbon zero by 2050, that is simply not enough.
One word answer, because we've got to go to the break, but one word answer, Dr. Emily Grossman. Is the UK government doing more on climate change than the US government or the China government?
It's an impossible
Chinese
question
government.
to answer. It's an impossible question to answer.
You don't want to
US
answer it
government
because you know what the
are-
answer is. The answer is
No,
yes.
that's not true. Because what we're doing in this country of our own fossil fuel emissions is irrelevant, because that's not where our fossil fuel emissions are actually having the impact.
Well, look, we will continue the debate. We will continue the debate, no doubt. Dr. Emily Grossman from Extinction Rebellion, as one of their members, climbs up free solo up Big Ben, a 49-year-old tree surgeon called Ben Atkinson. I hope he doesn't cause an accident. I especially hope he doesn't injure anyone on the ground. Highly irresponsible action. Now on the Friday Five with the barrister Laurie-Anne Power, and let's kick off with the breaking news today, Laurie-Anne, that police have arrested more than 700 in a UK-wide county lines drug crackdown. What is going on?
Well, this is really the catalyst to what's been going on and what will continue to go on for a long time. County line drugs really is about people high up the drug chain recruiting younger people at the bottom end, those vulnerable, those normally in either in care or in homes, and effectively putting them out on the streets to run the drugs. So they become the face of the drug lines, and of course they don't profit in the way that those people at the top do. And so county lines really was a way of targeting. This operation was trying to target the young people to take them off the streets, but also to try and crack down on the large amount of crime going on the borders.
So you think it's probably the first phase in a wider crackdown? Is that your sense?
I think so. I think that from now, this is the start, and I think that this has been a really brilliant start, because this is a real problem, primarily because the people that are used to sell these drugs are so young, are so vulnerable. I've done lots of these cases, and I'd say 90% of the clients that I've had to represent charged with drug offences have been below the age of 18 and have almost always come from broken homes.
Absolutely heartbreaking. And number 4, a story that I am very much across. The president of Ed Sheeran's record label, a guy called Ben Cook, quits amid a blackface controversy. Now, the last time you were here, Laurie-Anne, we were talking about this in regards to the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. Yeah. In this case, in case you're listening and you don't know what happened, This is probably the UK's top music executive.
Yeah.
He discovered people like Ed Sheeran. He's
Absolutely.
responsible for people like Stormzy. He says that 7 years ago, so that's 2012, he went to a birthday party. You had to come dressed as one of your music heroes.
Yeah.
He dressed as someone from Run DMC. The inference, we don't know for sure because we haven't seen the photo. The inference is that as part of that outfit, he black-faced or
Exactly.
blacked up
Yeah.
his face with makeup.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you are a black woman. Do you feel that him making the decision to do that 7 years ago should cost him his executive job?
Yes, I do. I feel so strongly about this because, you know, we tolerate a lot as people of colour, and we kind of sometimes make excuses for people when we've just got to call it. Adele is one of my favourite all-time stars. You know, I just adore everything about her. And if someone said to me, come to a party dressed as Adele, who's my favourite, I wouldn't dream of turning my face white.
But you probably would if you were dressing up as Queen Elizabeth I.
I probably wouldn't. I mean, if I were to do that, it's because that's something that she did.
Yeah.
We know that she did that. And so that would be a part of the costume.
It's just, look, I'm not, by the way, I have never, ever done blackface myself, and I would not countenance it, I would not even consider it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think about where this potentially leads us. So, for example, what about people that are now starting to question whether drag is appropriate?
Well, they're two completely different things, and blackface has
But
with it Rachel.
But it's still someone who is biologically a man dressing up to imitate a woman.
Well, part of the costume of drag is imitation, is embellishment of the character that you are pretending to be. And with that necessarily comes the embellishment of the costume. And that is what drag is about. Blackface is about, emanates from a position of troubled, deep-centred racism, where it was socially acceptable up until the 1950s, 60s in this country for people to parade around with black shoe polish on their face.
Yeah, even more recently.
Even more recently. I think in 1972 was the last time on television. And parade around with shoe polish on their face as some form of entertainment.
So, for people who are listening and genuinely confused, is it appropriate if you are a white person or an Asian person or someone who isn't black, is it appropriate to go to a party dressed as Michael Jackson or Tina Turner or whoever your black icon is, as long as you leave your skin tone as it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you just have to exercise some common sense. You know, like you say, if I were to go to a party dressed as Michael Jackson, although he's a black man, he was for many years, he wasn't the same colour as me. And so, you know, I may wear a Michael Jackson wig and some white socks and black shoes, but I'm not going to put my face white to, you know, you just have to be sensible. And
because the only reason I'm asking is I think people genuinely do need to know, because if you're going to lose careers over this.
I don't think it happens, Dan, anymore, though. I think that this is something our younger generation of culturally inclusive, diverse, sensible, media savvy, socially savvy young people do not go around putting black shoe polish on their face just to be Run DMC for the day.
No, absolutely.
You know? So I think, zero tolerance policy on blackface from me.
Now, just very quickly at number 3, the BBC licence fee latest, Lorianne, this is Nicky Morgan, the Culture Secretary, opening up the possibility that the BBC could move to a subscription service. Now, this is something I've been calling for a long time. What do you think about it?
Well, I think subscription service for some, but not for all. The problem here is that pensioners, those over 75, will suffer because it will become means tested. And there is a very fine line between...
Although the BBC isn't now covering their licence fee
that's right. Anyway, well, this is the point. And it was effectively something implemented in about 1999 by the Labour government. It was meant to continue. The government said when they won't cover it anymore, they push it back to the BBC. Now the BBC says, no, we're not doing it. But the point is this, is that if at 75 years of age, you retire and you're settling down, having worked for the country, and you're means tested for your licence fee, and it means that you have to fulfil a criteria which you may be £2 or £3 over, where you can afford it, or £2 or £3 under where you can't. Those people living effectively in poverty may be stripped of their TV licence fee. Now, to you and I, that might not be a big deal, but for an old person, a pensioner who is most of the time stuck in their homes, it's a huge deal.
It's their life. No, absolutely.
So this cost is everything, but value is more.
And of course, at number 2, the Extinction Rebellion, which we spoke about. And one question for our number 1 story: Boris Johnson's Brexit deal. Will it get past? Lori-Ann Power, what's your view?
Oh, I think it will. I think, look, Boris is, whatever your view about Boris is, he gets things done. And I think he is going to get this done. That's what I think.
And maybe then become one of our greatest ever Prime Ministers.
Well, I don't know about that's
Power.
pushing it, but yeah, we'll be out.
Lori-Ann Power, the barrister, thank you for counting down the biggest stories of the week in the Friday Five. We'll see you very soon. In less than 24 hours, that national nightmare, I keep calling it that because I really do feel that is what the last 3 years has been, could be over. The votes of 17.4 million of us could be honoured, and we might become an independent nation again. That is, of course, the dream of Prime Minister Boris Johnson. His key lieutenant, Home Secretary Priti Patel, will be here later in the show. Would also love to hear from you on this potential victory for Bojo. Do you support Boris's deal? What do you want to happen tomorrow? And actually, perhaps more importantly, what do you think will go down tomorrow? Some breaking news now from Charlotte Ivers, our political reporter. How do you think it's actually looking for Boris at the moment, Charlotte?
Good afternoon, Dan. It's been another weird day. I think I said that to you last Friday, and here we are.
It's been
again.
A weird 3 years, okay? Let's just admit it.
So I was sitting there with my spreadsheet and my calculator trying to work out, is Boris Johnson going to hit that magic 320 number he needs to pass his deal? And then all of a sudden, about an hour ago, we had this curveball come in from Oliver Letwin. Now, he's a backbench MP. He's very good at using legislation. He's been a bit of a thorn in the side of the government, but he claims he's trying to be helpful. He's trying to get the deal through. I'm not sure Boris Johnson would agree with him. But essentially, do you remember that Ben Act? So that says...
Oh, yes, the Surrender Act. That
says that tomorrow, if MPs have not approved a deal, Boris Johnson has to write for an extension to the European Union. So basically, what the Letwin amendment says, and that's going to be voted on before they get to the main vote, that says... It's basically changed the definition of approve. So instead of just being able to say once, yes, that's fine, we approve it, and that counts, they're actually going to have to pass all of the legislation involved in leaving the European Union before they can reasonably said to have approved it. So essentially, if Letwin gets that through, Boris Johnson has to ask for that extension on Saturday, and we still won't know if we've definitely left the EU until later next week.
But do you think that makes it more likely that he would get the numbers tomorrow?
Well, that's the thing. So Letwin says he's being helpful, and actually it looks like he might be in some ways. So since Letwin put that motion forward, Amber Rudd, obviously a key Remain voice, David Gauke, famously of the Gawkwood Squad, they've both come on side and said if the Letwin motion passes, they will be backing Boris Johnson. So that could put his numbers up and get it through.
So it's sort of a way to get the Tory Remainers potentially on board.
Sort of, but on the other hand, there is a problem for the government, and that is that if next week we can't have left the European Union until all the legislation has gone through, every time there's a vote in Parliament, that gives every MP the opportunity to put forward their little pet projects, their little changes to the legislation and make it look slightly different. So the legislation we end up having finally just before we leave might look nothing like what we had on Saturday. So the deal we get may be very, very different to the one that Boris Johnson wants.
But the EU won't accept that, will they?
It depends. If we move further towards what the EU wants, then they could be pretty happy with it.
Charlotte, how ridiculous. How ridiculous, but it is going to be a fascinating 24 hours. And of course, you'll keep us posted on any developments before the end of the show. And you will be there down at College Green all day tomorrow, I imagine, reporting on this breaking news.
We'll be there all day tomorrow, and we will bring you the votes as they come in.
And of course, Mike Graham doing a special show from 10 to 1. And Julia Hartley-Brewer is going to be on air from 1 till 4. And does it look like that the vote might take place between 1 and 4, those sort of hours? Is that where it's shaping up at the moment?
Yes, so everything I've heard from people I've been speaking to in Parliament, they've been saying they're expecting first vote at 2:30. We don't know how many amendments are going to be selected yet, but basically each time there's an amendment, there'll be a vote, and that will take 15 minutes. So I would say top times to tune in would be between that 2:30 mark and maybe 3:30.
I am a geek. I'm clearing my diary tomorrow. It's like the Super Bowl, isn't it, if you're a political geek? Thank you so much, Alan Ivers. Have a good day tomorrow, but do keep us posted if anything goes down before the end of the show. Joined now by Jack Dromey. He is the Labour MP for Birmingham, Erdington, and also the Shadow Pensions Minister. Jack, I guess the biggest question in Westminster right now is, could it end up being Labour MPs in Northern Leave constituencies that end up pushing this deal over the line?
It's impossible to tell at this stage. The vote tomorrow is finely balanced. Every member of Parliament has to search their conscience, but also crucially, Dan, to act in the national interest. And my approach is quite simply this. I respect the outcome of the referendum in 2016. I think we have to do everything possible to fulfil the mandate that the British people gave to us. The problem with the Boris Johnson deal is it's bad for Britain. It's bad for our manufacturing economy. It's bad for workers' rights. It's bad for our economy. I will therefore vote against the Boris Johnson deal, but crucially then, it is about, at the next stages, fighting for a better deal for Britain that protects our national interest, our manufacturing base, and our economy and workers' rights.
Don't you just think that the public want Brexit done and this is the best deal that we're going to get?
Again, you're right. I get the message the whole time. I can just quote to you one shop steward from the Jaguar plant in my constituency, Dan. He said to me, "Jack, not aimed at you, but tell them up there to stop sodding about."
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I think there is complete dismay on the part of the British people that 3 years on, this has yet to be resolved. And that's why the idea that this just drags on cannot be allowed to happen. So if there is an extension of a further 3 months until the end of January, the idea that we're having these discussions on 20th of January, still with no resolution to the Brexit challenge to our country, is completely wrong. And that's why, yes, I will be voting against the Boris Johnson deal tomorrow, because I think it is a bad deal for Britain. But crucially, it is then about, in a matter of days and weeks that follow that, finally getting to an outcome by way of a deal that protects the British national interest if we are to leave the European Union.
But can you see, Jack, why people find the Labour position on this deal and how quickly you slammed the deal very surprising, given that actually Labour has also made it clear that it doesn't really want to fight a general election on Brexit either? So why not just back the deal and fight a general election on the issues that Labour says it wants to go to the public on?
Because if you believe, as I do, that you have to put the British national interest first, if you then look at the detail as we did, and can I just give you two examples?
Yeah, what's wrong with the detail?
Well, first of all, is that what's absolutely crucial, the 5 major employers' organisations together came out last week and said that we need what's called frictionless trade across Europe. I mean, the Jaguar plant in my constituency, some of the parts, there's 2 million parts a day, who go into Jaguar Land Rover cars. And some of them cross nation-state boundaries 4 and 5 times before they finally go to the production line. So what's called regulatory alignment is also absolutely key. Things that basically underpin our modern economy in the 21st century, born out of 50 years of membership of the European Union. You have to sort these problems first. Otherwise, you create impossible problems as we move forward over the years to come. And then on workers' rights is that under the Theresa May deal, which is better than the Boris Johnson deal, there was guarantees in relation to workers' rights. That's now been downgraded into what's called a political declaration, with Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary, on radio this morning, saying that we don't want to be bound in future. And I know what that means from my experience over many years in the trade union movement. is that the rights that are guaranteed right now are rights that cannot be counted upon in future. And so those are about two of many examples of why I think it's right that we say the deal is not good enough. It is not good as the Theresa May deal. But then I come back, Dan, to the challenge that you lay down, which I think, I stress again, is absolutely right. The British people expect us to sort this and to sort this quick.
Yes.
And that's what we've got to focus on at the next stage.
Okay, well, what's next if the deal loses then? What's next? Do you try and force a second referendum? Because right now you're not even trying to do that.
I think the first task next week is how, in Parliament, and the discussions are taking place on this right now, is that we have a legislation that permits a process that arrives at a bill that can protect the national interest, be acceptable to the European Union, and I think it will be, and enable us to move forward. Now, it's complex and a big challenge, and there's mechanisms being talked about that will be used commencing on Monday of next week. But put it this way, across party, there is an absolute determination that we get to an outcome that does protect the British national interest. There's then the issue.
And if the deal wins tomorrow, do you accept it? If the deal wins tomorrow, do you accept it and move on for the good of the country?
If the deal is accepted by Parliament, then the vote is clear. It has been accepted by Parliament.
And you'll move on?
Move on in terms of a process over the next week and 2 weeks of debate on the bill, where naturally what we will seek to do is to make significant changes to strengthen the bill to protect the national interest, particularly our manufacturing economy. Your report just now made the point that I think in the amendment that's been accepted by the House of Commons from Oliver is that that quite rightly the whole process needs to be completed. And that means, therefore, there's bound to be something of an extension of the timetable necessary to do that.
Seems like you're quite confident.
What the country cannot do is to buy a pig in a poke. So a vote tomorrow is just the start of a process. Then there would be, if the bill goes through, there would then be intense debate over the next couple of weeks about the final details of the bill.
But you're confident it won't pass?
On balance, I think it will not pass. That looks to be the case now. You can never tell for absolute certain. Forgive the flippancy, but one of your journalist colleagues earlier on asked me this question, and I said, do you remember that TV programme, Mystic Meg? I'm not Mystic Jack. No one can predict with complete certainty what will happen at the next stages. But I believe it is likely to fail. And in those circumstances, forgive me if I say it once again, Parliament has a duty across party to rise to the challenge, finally to come together around a set of proposals that would genuinely protect the British national interest if we are to leave the European Union.
Okay, well, we will see what happens.
Whether you put it to a referendum.
We will see what happens, and we will see if it is those Labour MPs who do put the deal through. Jack Dromey, the Labour MP for Birmingham Erdington, and the Shadow Pensions Minister, thank you so much for being here. We will hear from the other side of the coin, of course, Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, on the way. Welcome back to Talk Radio. Huge 24 hours in politics. We are covering all angles here on Friday Drive Time ahead of Super Saturday. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, here in just a moment. But I'd also love to hear from you today. 0344 499 1000 is my number. What do you think of Boris Johnson's deal, and what do you think will happen tomorrow? Charles and Derby. Charles, what do you think?
Dan, great show. Love your view on the climate activists. Yeah, you had earlier. Brilliant.
So angry, Charles. So angry.
Don't get me down that one, Dan. It absolutely infuriates me.
But no, what do you think of the deal? Let's talk about that.
Well, the deal. What everybody needs to understand is the actual structure of Europe. At the moment, as we're in the EU, Germany is the single biggest financial contributor to Europe. We are number 2. We are the lowest percentage return on that investment by way of our grants and our aids. Now, when we leave, all of a sudden, Germany is going to become number 1 in the financial holding the purse strings as far as the EU is concerned, and they desperately need Britain. They produce Mercedes cars, BMWs, Porsche, Volkswagen, Audi. Do you really think they're going to want a tariff deal with Britain on those cars? I don't think so. I think Germany is going to pull rank on the EU and very quickly get us a seamless deal.
Interesting view. Interesting view. Could well happen. Thank you for your call, Charles. Felix is in Slough. Felix, do you support Boris's deal?
Absolutely, I do, Dan. Yes.
Why? What do you like about it?
My bottom line was always out of the customs union, and that will happen.
Yeah, and that's why I'm a little bit annoyed, Felix, with all of these people, including members of the ERG or Brexit Party MEPs, who said that they hated May's deal because of the customs union. And that's sorted. And the backstop's sorted too. So what is there not to like?
Yeah, I think with the Brexit Party, I think it's more a case of Mr. Farage's ego right now.
Well, I think the point is, right, the Brexit Party is facing like an existential crisis. Do they survive post-Brexit deal? They certainly won't thrive in the way they have done the last couple of election cycles in terms of the European elections and UKIP, of course, I'm referring to before that. But I guess there are going to be hardline Brexiteers throughout the country that just don't feel this deal has gone far enough.
Yes, indeed. And you know what? I don't think Boris needs all the Brexit Party voters. I think under first past the post, if you've got, say, even 35% of the vote, which the Tories have got now, there's a 10-point gap between Labour and Lib Dem are pretty close. Under first past the post, that kind of margin is enough. And
Absolutely.
I don't think he needs all the Brexit Party. If he gets half that vote, he's home and dry with a massive majority.
Yeah, well, what I've heard is that he's banking on getting the Brexit Party, or Tory strategists are banking on getting the Brexit Party down from the 14% where they're polling at the moment to sort of around the 8% mark.
That'll be fine. And then they start to eat away at the Labour vote.
Good point.
In Leave constituencies. Can I say one more thing?
Yes, of course.
After the deal got done yesterday, agreed, let's say. I was walking down the stairs, and I just thought, you know what? I feel really happy, and I didn't realise that this dither and delay and Mrs. May and everything. I'm not saying I was clinically depressed or anything, don't get me wrong. But just in the back of my mind, it was a bit of a downer for so many years. And I didn't realise just how much of a sort of in the back of the mind downer it was until yesterday when I thought, I feel quite elated. Why is that? And it was because he's done the deal.
Felix, I actually just feel like you have made such a salient point that so many of us have felt for so long. And you're totally right. It's almost become something that we try and block out, this negativity in our lives and the sort of lack of clarity about what's going to happen and the chaos at Westminster. But I do feel like it's dragged the national psyche down.
Yeah, because on the day of the referendum result, I was elated. And it's been downhill ever since, I'm afraid,
But even Remainers...
Go stabbing Boris in the back and,
well, of course,
all that kind of...
But even so many Remainers, though, Felix, also just want it done.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And I think this is a good deal too.
But I think you're right. We've tried to block it out for so long. And I have to be honest, Felix, I'm not getting too excited yet. There can be bumps on the road before this deal is passed, fingers crossed, tomorrow. And the DUP proving that they are the ultimate bump in the road right now.
Yeah, but isn't it great the way that Boris has managed, like some kind of martial arts exponent, to use his weakness as a strength?
Absolutely. No, and he's done everything he said he would do as well. great call that, Felix. Really, really appreciate you sort of tapping into that psychological aspect of what happened yesterday. I think for me, if I'm speaking personally, I haven't got too excited yet because I want it over. I want it done. I want the country to move on. I desperately want us all to pull together and be a united country again. But I think a lot could happen because one thing that we know about Brexit is that 24 hours is a very, very long time in these negotiations. The Home Secretary Priti Patel here in just a moment. But first, the political review of the week. From the right, Tom Harwood from Guido Fawkes. From the left, Michael Walker from Novara Media. Tom, I will kick off with you this week because this is a celebration for you. You were one of the only commentators in the media who correctly predicted that Boris was going to secure this deal. And in fairness to you, you took a lot of hits, a lot of shots, including from Michael Walker from the left, people who didn't believe your analysis, and it's turned out to be completely right.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. There hasn't almost been this moment of reflection from a lot of the media over the last, only 3 days since only 2 days since the deal was announced. The idea that Boris could reopen the withdrawal agreement, that even bilateral negotiations could happen, in effect, was viewed as unicornism, as fantasy by the entire political establishment in this country. But it's turned out to be true. The backstop's been taken out. There was a bilateral negotiation. The withdrawal agreement has been reopened, and there is a new deal. So everything that everyone said for the last 3 months from the entire political establishment has turned out to be not true, and Boris has got a big, big victory that looks like just about it has the numbers to pass through Parliament.
Michael Walker, were you one of these people that didn't actually believe Boris wanted a deal? Secretly, he was just pushing for no deal?
No, I've always thought he wanted a deal. And to be fair, though, I do think that the EU have made some serious concessions here. There is now an exit mechanism from the customs union, and there wasn't before. I mean, for me, the issue is
which your lot was saying was impossible.
Well, it depends who's my lot, right? So
Labour.
my position on this, the Labour Party's position on this has been one that they didn't trust Boris Johnson because he wasn't being very clear about what he wanted. Yeah,
but he wasn't being very clear because he needed the confidentiality.
Let me get
privacy.
onto the second point. The second point is, what is all this for? So the reason that Boris Johnson wanted to get rid of the backstop is because he wants a harder Brexit than what Theresa May wanted. What that means is the UK leaves the customs union. The UK has greater regulatory de-alignment from the EU. Yes. And why I don't want that is, one, because everything shows that's going to make us poorer. That's what the Treasury's own statistics show us. And that's why Sajid Javid doesn't want to have analysis of what the impact would be of this. But two, it means that we can move into the regulatory orbit of the United States. And we as a small country will be in a very weak position when we're negotiating a trade deal with the United States, which is why I prefer us to be in the European Union.
By what metric are we small?
By what metric?
We're the fifth largest economy in the world. We have a permanent seat on the UN Security Council.
Size is relative, right? So we are going to be very small relative to the EU, which is currently...
Does size matter to you?
Look, I'm not dogmatic about these things in many areas of life, but when it comes to trade negotiations, I'm a realist. And I know that when you go into a negotiation, the big fish wins, right? And when you go into a trading negotiation with the EU versus the United States, you can come out with a deal that looks quite good for all sides.
Australia's doing pretty well, isn't it?
Australia managed to secure a deal with the US over the course of just about over 12 months.
You can get the deal, but the point is, does it give United States corporations access to the NHS? Does it give American corporations... What does that mean? So it would mean that they can say... So you have investment disputes mechanisms, which are often drawn into current or modern trade deals. Yeah. So an investment dispute mechanism says our corporations will have the right to sue your government if they make any policy which threatens our interests. So if you have a reform of the NHS which says that we want to renationalise certain provision of things because we think we're getting ripped off by certain corporations, if the government makes that decision, then they can get sued in an international court by an American private healthcare company.
Okay, well, we're getting carried away. We're going to come back to this deal very, very shortly because I want to know if it's actually going to be Labour and the Labour levers that end up pushing this through. But Tom Harwood from Guido Fawkes from the right, and Michael Walker from Novara Media from the left will be back. Welcome back to Talk Radio. It is 5:43. This is the Political Week in Review with Tom Harwood from the right, from Guido Fawkes, and Michael Walker from the left, from Novara Media. We will be speaking to Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, before 6 as well. But first, Tom, I want to talk about whether this deal is actually going to get passed. Now, I know there is this, we spoke about at the top of the hour, with Charlotte Ive as our political reporter, there is now this added complication of Oliver Letwin and what this means. But let's just talk about how this deal is going to get through. Is Boris relying on the Labour levers?
Well, to a certain extent, he has to, because the DUP aren't on board. So there isn't an automatic governing majority for this. So he needs to reach out. But what's interesting is if you take the last vote for the May's withdrawal agreement on its own as a starting point, you only need to pick up 31 switchers who voted against that deal who vote for this one. Now, 28 of those are the sort of so-called Spartans, the ERG vote members in the Tory party who voted against the withdrawal agreement, but who seem to be very
and they need 20.
Open. They need 31 switchers. So you can get, if you get every single ERG member on board, that's 28.
You'd only need 3 Labour MPs.
So you'd only need 3 Labour MPs, but there might be a couple of Tories who voted for May's deal that have slipped off. So really, to be safe, we need to really pick up about 10 Labour MPs.
And Michael Walker, is it fair that you have aspects of the new Labour establishment, Corbyn's Labour establishment, threatening these MPs, saying, well, you'll just be picked off and replaced by a socialist at the next election? Is that fair to put these Labour levers in Leave constituencies under that degree of pressure?
Well, I mean, this is the most important vote of this parliament, and the Labour leadership, I think rightly, believe that this deal would endanger workers' rights in this country, would endanger health and food standards, not because of any conspiracy, but purely by the nature of the fact that we are going to be a smaller country than the United States, making trade deals with them. That's just a fact, right? And also they're worried about the impact assessment showing that people will be $2,500 worse off in 10 years' time each. That was the Treasury's own statistics. But in terms of should they discipline or punish their MPs, I think it seems at the moment that they're not going to be withdrawing the whip, but there are some people on the NEC who've said they might withdraw the right of people who vote with Boris Johnson to stand as Labour candidates at the next election. Apparently Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell are calling anyone wavering at the moment to try and persuade them to vote against Boris Johnson tomorrow.
But for an MP like Caroline Flint, that would be going against what her electorate wants.
Well, in terms of Labour voters, lots of the statistics show that actually most Labour MPs are elected by a majority of Remainers. So their constituency voted Leave, but their voters, their particular voters, voted Remain. But at the same time, I mean, these MPs need to be communicating to their constituents that the particular deal that Boris Johnson has put forward here is one that does threaten workers' rights. It's one that does threaten food standards. It's one that does threaten environmental standards because we're leaving the regulatory orbit of the EU.
Well, this is the point. Isn't this the point? Any Brexit, you could argue this. I remember this argument made.
Brexit.
I remember this argument made repeatedly during the referendum campaign. People seem to think that something's under threat if you take back control over it. When Jeremy Corbyn says, but we're going to lose workers' rights or whatever, no, it just means that workers' rights will move to being under the auspices of the British Parliament. That's exactly where they should be. Because, do you know what? All the most important rights in this country were not won by the EU. They weren't granted from on high by Jean-Claude Juncker. They were won by people in this country and our elected Parliament. And that's how it should be delivered.
What that misunderstands is the nature of modern trade negotiations. So modern trade negotiations aren't really about tariffs. They're not really about do we charge 1% or 3% on your goods. They're about what rights do our corporations have in your country. That's just a fact. And if we are negotiating as a small country in those trading negotiations with big countries like the United States, then people on the left are rightly worried that this is an excuse actually by the Tory right to go into these negotiations and say, oh, we had to give up this. We had to give up this to this American corporation, otherwise we wouldn't have had any trade. So we recognise that it's by negotiating with the EU in trading relationships that we are best able to protect the standards that we enjoy in this country, and that's the Labour position, and it's a correct one.
Every single EU country other than the United Kingdom has a market-based form of healthcare, for example. In a trade negotiation between the EU and the US, in a situation, in a deal like the Labour Party wants to see, where the UK is in a customs union but has no seat at that table, the EU could wipe away any concern that the UK has over an area like the NHS. However, the UK negotiating by itself can take those special considerations into consideration and not sign up to any deal that puts that at risk. And do you know what's more important than that? Everyone wants a general election. There will be a transition period as a result of this deal that lasts around a year. There will be a general election within that year. If you're concerned about any trade deal that might happen, surely that means that you're under the impression that Labour will lose the next election. If you're so confident in your party leadership and strategy and programme, then surely you'd embrace this opportunity to take back control over the host of the regulatory structure of the United Kingdom, win that election that might happen just before or just after Christmas, and then you can pursue your own domestic agenda without let or hindrance from the European Union.
No, if Labour win the next election, they won't be negotiating a trade deal with the United States. They'll be negotiating a customs union deal with the European Union, because they recognise that we're stronger as a country when we're negotiating with that EU bloc. Even whether inside or outside the European Union, we're in a stronger position negotiating with the United States and negotiating with Donald Trump if we do it with the European Union. So there won't be a Labour free trade deal.
Do you know how the Turkey customs union relationship works? It's totally one-sided. The fact is that the EU can, in any negotiation, sign a trade deal with another country, let that country access the markets of Turkey and not let Turkey access the markets of the country that the European Union has negotiated with. We would be prostituted out, for want of a better phrase, by the European Union if we were locked into that relationship. Totally subservient, totally ridiculous for a country the size and importance and global weight of ours. It is a ludicrous position, and I think you know it, and I think the Labour leadership know it.
So firstly, one, that's the reason why when Labour have a public vote, many of the MPs will back Remain, because they think that gives you more power over these regulations. But two, I think what Boris Johnson has shown, to be honest, is that you can come up with fixes when you're negotiating with the European Union, so that we could have a customs union with the European Union where we got somewhat of a veto, or potentially a soft veto, but some influence in what trade deals are signed. The Labour frontbench, in fact, has spoken to Michel Barnier, and he said that would be possible.
Well, hold that thought. That is Michael Walker from the left, from Novara Media, Tom Harwood with me as well, from the right, from Guido Fawkes. But right now we're joined by the Home Secretary, Priti Patel. Priti,
hello.
Where do things stand right now? I mean, they said it couldn't be done. They said Boris Johnson was actually just secretly gunning for a no deal. He's proven all the critics wrong. But is he going to get it passed tomorrow?
Well, I think you've just made an important point. 86 days ago or so, people were saying that none of this was achievable, and the Prime Minister has negotiated a new deal, and a Brexit deal that effectively does what it says on the tin, takes back control of money, laws, trade, borders. So the challenge for all MPs now, remember that nearly 80% of them were elected on manifestos that were near enough saying we're going to get Brexit done, we're going to deliver the referendum mandate. They have the ability now to make that choice and make that decision to effectively get Brexit done, move us forward as a country. This is a great deal for our country, and importantly, I think we can come out of the EU as one United Kingdom together, decide our future, leave the EU in 2 weeks' time, and start working on a new future, working on new free trade arrangement, build on now, after 3.5 years, what could be a positive relationship with our friends around the world, but also our friends in the EU. And this, for me, I think is the absolute question now for all members of Parliament. If, you know, the days of blocking Brexit and the days of just debating the merits of the referendum are long gone. We need to really get this done and move forward.
Now, no one could be closer to the ERG Spartans than you, Priti. Do you think that they are going to see sense tomorrow morning and say, you know what, it might not be exactly what we wanted, but as we said on the front page of The Sun today, get real, take the deal?
I think that newspaper headline is absolutely spot on, and I'm going to say that. Yes, as someone that obviously did not support the previous deal. And there are many reasons for that. You know, we've now got rid of the undemocratic backstop. We will now be in the position where we can end supremacy of the European courts, strike our own free trade deals. We won't be bound by EU laws and taxes. That alone is a strong and compelling proposition. And as someone that had previously voted 3 times against the previous deal, along with my colleagues as well, who felt very strongly about the inability to secure our freedom, I am absolutely clear that this deal, you know, there is no alternative, actually. This is the best deal, and the fact that it has been negotiated pretty assiduously should give my colleagues, every certainty and every reassurance that if we are committed to delivering the referendum mandate, if we are going to be true to the 17.4 million, but also the British public, members of the British public that voted in the last general election to get Brexit done, then this is the only way forward. This is the right and responsible way forward, to leave with a deal so that we can have that transition, so that we can give business certainty, so we can give confidence back to investors overseas to come back and invest in the UK. But I think importantly as well, by getting Brexit done, as a country, we can move forward in a totally different way in terms of now focusing on what I call the people's priorities, the investments in public services, in something I'm obviously working on, investment in law and order, police officers, protecting our people, communities and country. And this is exactly how we can absolutely get this done and move forward as a nation.
So how angry are you with the DUP?
Well, I have worked with my DUP colleagues for a number of years, and they are both my friends and colleagues. And what I would say for the DUP, but also for the people of Northern Ireland in particular, that Northern Ireland gets a great deal out of this because it is part of the UK's customs territory and will have frictionless trade with the EU single market, which means no additional infrastructure, no extra infrastructure at the border. And if you remember previously, again, this was a major issue with the withdrawal agreements, the undemocratic backstop, everything in terms of why there was just so much difficulty with accepting the previous deal. There is, of course, a consent mechanism there as well, whether they themselves want to stay part of the framework, basically, that will be put in place. But I just think this is such a good deal. It's a strong, compelling deal. And on the economic side as well for Northern Ireland, the ability to have frictionless trade with the EU single market and benefit from future free trade agreements and arrangements with the whole of the United Kingdom is not only compelling, it's incredibly strong. And I think from a Northern Ireland perspective, they will benefit in the long run in terms of their own economic growth.
And surely they should also listen to the endorsement of David Trimble, who obviously won the Nobel Peace Prize for his work putting together the Good Friday Agreement. We all know he was totally against the backstop. He said it would wreck the Good Friday Agreement. And here he is today, coming out and saying that this agreement is a great step forward. He says it will have no impact on peace in Ireland.
And I think this is it's an important point. And David has also said today that it is in the spirit of the Good Friday Agreement. And of course, we want to see our communities prosper together. We want our communities to be strong. And, we cannot, no one in government would, want to undermine that at all. So I think I come back to my original point that this is fundamentally a new deal, but it's fundamentally a deal that will unite the entire United Kingdom, because we are leaving the EU's customs union as one United Kingdom. Yes, we'll be able to strike free trade deals around the world, but importantly, we will come out as one United Kingdom and we will prosper together as one United Kingdom. And that is just so important.
Priti, just on a personal level, how proud are you this week of Boris Johnson? Because you were obviously one of his key lieutenants. He has had everything thrown at him over these past few weeks. Virtually the entire world doubted that he would be able to pull off this deal.
Well, I think you've just summed that up. I mean, I think he has been phenomenal. And, this is very much a testament, a tribute to his determination and conviction to do the right thing and to deliver Brexit. I feel a great deal of pride with the Prime Minister for what he has achieved, because it has not been easy. And as I've said previously, 4 months ago, everybody said none of this was achievable. People were telling us you'll never get the withdrawal agreement reopened, you'll never get the backstop removed, you'll never get changes to the political declaration. Through sheer conviction, having belief as well in Brexit, and also through the work across government that the Prime Minister has led, actually on things such as no deal planning and preparedness, getting the country ready and the government ready for delivering Brexit. That, of course, has changed the whole flow, the dialogue, the ways of working, and he's been able to show tremendous leadership, and I really do pay tribute to him.
Now, just finally before you go, because obviously there's this breaking news today, another Extinction Rebellion madman currently scaling Big Ben. Priti Patel, hasn't London shown that we've had enough and the police actually have to step up their actions against these lunatics who actually are now putting our safety very much at risk?
Well, I've heard in the last sort of 15 minutes or so about this protester in Parliament. And, we have such great freedoms in this country. But I do think where you have people behaving unlawfully, where you have people causing such huge disruption across our streets, not enabling people to get on with their daily lives, that is simply wrong. But what I would say, and in fact this afternoon I have met many police officers around Westminster who have had to put up with the most appalling abuse themselves through many of these protests and protesters who've just been behaving absolutely dreadful. All credit to the police. They have been making arrests rightfully where people have been behaving unlawfully. But there is a message. We have great freedoms in this country. People have the right to protest peacefully. But when it comes to unlawful behaviour, the police are doing the right thing in terms of, making sure that law enforcement is doing the right thing and they're arresting people that are just being far too disruptive and behaving completely in the wrong way.
Absolutely. Well, look, good luck tomorrow. Big day ahead. Get some sleep tonight. That's Priti Patel, the Home Secretary. Tom Harwood, what's your reaction?
Well, I think it's right that Priti Patel is sort of so jubilant, really, about what is a seismic political achievement. And it's right to dwell again on what has happened. Because, someone reminded me just today, the Queen's speech was just a few days ago. It feels like months ago compared to how much has happened in this turbulent week. And really, MPs need to think about how they can put this chapter in our history to bed tomorrow. They have the chance to get Brexit done. They have the opportunity to close the turbulence, to stop the division, to move forward as a country. And I hope and I think that they might just clinch it.
Michael Walker from Novara Media, were you feeling sick during that interview? Do you not feel the same sense of pride in our Prime Minister who's pulled off this great stunt that no one thought he could do?
Well, my first reaction was obviously, I wish you'd give me questions that soft. It was a bit like you're interviewing Andy Murray's mum after he'd won Wimbledon or something. How proud are you of Boris Johnson? But in any case, I think what you should have been asking...
Credit where credit's due. We've slammed
Patel,
Theresa May for months on this show. Credit where credit's due. He's done it. He got the deal that you said and your lot said was impossible for him to get.
Look, I didn't
Why
say
are
that.
you constantly wanting to do down our country?
You haven't listened to anything I've been saying this half an hour. Look, yes, Boris Johnson has got concessions from the European Union. Fair play to him. But the question you should be asking Priti Patel is, what's the end?
Well, you could have told me this 5 minutes ago.
What do you want? Well, you should have asked. You should ask next time you have a big cabinet minister on the show, I think. You should have asked, especially if they're a conservative. Well, they will be conservative until we have a general election. You should have asked, what do you want all of this for? What have you won these concessions for? Why do you want a free trade deal with the United States?
Well,
Why do you want to leave the regulatory orbit of the
Control.
European Union?
Why do you want to be in control of the rules and regulations in your country?
Also,
what an extraordinary question.
But also, she made that totally clear, though, did she not, Tom, by saying we want to give stability to businesses who have struggled to invest in this country for the past 3 years because the opposition to Brexit has resulted in total uncertainty.
I just find it utterly extraordinary that Jeremy Corbyn, who has opposed every single European treaty, every single transfer of power from this country to the European Union, is now implacably opposed to reclaiming those powers. He doesn't want power to sit with our own democratically elected politicians. He wants all of the unelected politicians in the European Union to hold on to that power. That's a disgrace.
I want to go back to the point about certainty.
Very quickly, because we've got to go to the news.
So in the short term, yes, any deal that gets passed will give some certainty to business. But what we need to look about is the long term. All the impact assessments suggesting that if we pass this deal, Britain will be poorer in 10 years' time than it will be.
Okay, well, I want
Union.
both of your predictions. What do you think it's going to? Well, do you think it will pass tomorrow? If so, by how much? Tom Harwood.
There are going to be 3 votes in it. It's going to be fine either way.
I can't cope.
I think the Let Win amendment will pass, and it might all become a little bit irrelevant.
Okay, fascinating. Well, thank you so much. That is Michael Walker from the left, from Novara Media, and of course Tom Harwood's from Guido Fawkes from the right. For weeks, Of course, we have heard constant rhetoric that the Prime Minister was only interested in secretly pushing forward some type of no-deal Brexit. Claims that have now been proven to be entirely fanciful. So I'm fascinated to see how dyed-in-the-wool Remainers who have made it their life's mission to overturn the country's biggest ever democratic result cope with that. 0344 499 1000 is my number, of course, 0344 499 1000. But speaking about dyed-in-the-wool Remainers, one of them is with me. Delighted to have Femi Oluwole, the campaigner from Our Future, Our Choice, on the show. Femi, you said this deal could never happen, Femi. You said it was impossible. Boris Johnson must be a miracle worker, Femi.
He's a miracle worker for managing to do something that he said he would never do. In fact, he said no Prime Minister could or should ever do what he's proposing, which is essentially create a regulatory barrier down the Irish Sea, severing off parts of the country. I mean, one of the biggest slogans from 2016 was, take our country back, and he's just given away parts of it. Doesn't seem like a roaring success.
Well, you said on the 11th of April that this withdrawal agreement will not change. You said it was because the EU will not throw Ireland under our big red bus. So are you now saying that that's what the EU have done, Femi?
Well, Ireland is, well, the deal basically says that Northern Ireland stays under the rule system of the EU. Now, the reason why they do that is because it avoids a hard border. Now, what that means is that Northern Ireland follows the rules of the EU, but will no longer be able to shake those rules. So essentially, it means giving up territorial sovereignty over a part of the UK. Now, that is not what Brexit voters wanted at all. So I assumed that Boris Johnson wouldn't do something that crazy, but apparently he has.
OK, but will you give any credit where it's due?
Well, I mean, the whole point of this is to fulfill the will of the people. You say 17 million people voted for Brexit.
17.4 million.
Yeah, let's fulfill the will of the people,
Let's be careful.
Yeah, 17.4 million people. But as we've seen, what's Nigel Farage saying? He says it's the second worst deal in history. There is a large portion of the Brexit voting population who do not want this, which means that if you take that means that there is no majority for it, because it means that if only a fraction of the 52% want this version of Brexit, it's not the will of the people. It's that simple. It's a math thing.
Well, look, at the end of the day, Femi, I just want you to at least concede that you were wrong when you said that the EU would not reopen the withdrawal agreement and would not drop the backstop, because they have done both of those things. Now, you might not like aspects of the deal, but I also believe in politics, because I can do this, Femi. I can absolutely always agree when people who I might not agree with have done something really good or really surprising, or that you didn't think they had it in them to do. And so do you acknowledge here and now that Boris Johnson was able to secure a deal that was better than May's deal, and something that you didn't believe he could ever get the EU to agree to?
Well, I guess my mistake there is thinking that he would follow through in what he said. And what he said was he would never and could never create a regulatory border down the Irish Sea, which is what he's done. If we want to call it a success that he's essentially surrendered parts of the country, that's up to you. I'm not sure I'd call it that, especially given that one of the reasons why people voted for Brexit was the idea of taking back control. I don't think it's taking back control if you make it so that the people of Northern Ireland no longer have a say at all on the regulations of Northern Ireland, but will be following those rules anyway. That is the exact opposite of taking back control. That is giving it up.
Well, Femi, I don't want to be rude, but when it comes to the issue of Northern Ireland, you know, the person who I'm going to listen to over a campaigner like you is David Trimble, because he was the former First Minister of Northern Ireland. He shared the Nobel Peace Prize for his work on the Good Friday Agreement, and he was very, very clear, before you try and accuse him of being some type of Tory stooge, you know, he was very, very clear when he wrote a paper previously that the backstop would wreck the Good Friday Agreement. And he has said of this new Brexit deal by Boris Johnson that it is fully in accordance with the spirit of the Good Friday Agreement. So he said that it does not pose any risk to peace in Northern Ireland.
Well, if we're talking about the
fully
idea
in accordance with the spirit of the... Sorry, I just want to read out this quote. This is fully in accordance with the spirit of the Good Friday Agreement.
Well, as for the idea of the spirit of the Good Friday Agreement, Sorry, I have to go there. One of the lines of the Good Friday Agreement is the idea that you shouldn't change the status of Northern Ireland within the UK without the express consent of the people of Northern Ireland. And the people of Northern Ireland voted against Brexit by 56%. So to suggest that this is in accordance with the spirit of that agreement is just factually wrong. Not to mention the fact that the Good Friday Agreement explicitly refers to continuing cooperation as members of the European Union. So Brexit of any kind violates the spirit of the Good Friday Agreement. So no, I'm going to contest that. And you said if you're going to talk to somebody about Northern Ireland, you go to David Trimble. I'd go to the people of Northern Ireland who, like I said, voted 56% against Brexit. This is definitely not the will of those people at all.
But Femi, you can't hark back to the election, to the referendum result in Northern Ireland when you're trying to overturn it.
Well, as I just said, if we do a no deal,
hypocritical, that, isn't it?
As I just explained, given that Nigel Farage's Brexit voters are not okay with the Brexit that's on offer, we can't say that this is fulfilling the will of the people. In fact, this is the hypocrisy we see. The people who stopped Theresa May's deal going through, they could have been accused of trying to stop Brexit, because if Theresa May's deal had gone through, that would have done Brexit. But unfortunately, people stopped that. They weren't accused of trying to defy the will of the people. They just simply were accused of trying to push for a different type of Brexit. Well, I'm trying to make sure we don't get a Brexit that even Brexit voters do not want, which is what we have with Boris Johnson's deal.
Femi, did you see the poll, the Comres poll with Channel 5 this week? Did you see it?
No.
Okay, so this was a poll, and this was, because I don't usually believe the polls, Femi, because they were all wrong when it came to this referendum.
Unless they suit your agenda. Okay.
Well, in this case, Femi, the poll is so overwhelming, and it was a poll of 25,000 people nearly. Okay, so this is a massive sample. That's about 10 times any normal poll in terms of sample size. And it's bad news for you, Femi. It's very, very bad news, because it shows the country is moving very, very far away from your position. So when these people were asked if for their favoured outcome for Brexit negotiations, 50% now said they want to leave and 42% said they want to remain. But here was the key one for me, Femi. Asked a slightly different question. Do they think the 2016 referendum result should be honoured? 54% said yes, and just 32% said no. Do you accept that you've lost the support of the British public? You might have had it in the midst of the chaos of Theresa May, but now people just want this deal done. They want the country to unite, and they want to get back to normal.
But you're still ignoring the fact. In fact, I'm going to use another Comrades poll.
No, Femi. Do that next. Talk to me about this poll first, because that's what I've asked you about.
Well, that's the point. The poll says get Brexit done, fulfill the will of the people, etc. But as was shown by another Comrades poll, which was actually commissioned by Nigel Farage's Leave Means Leave organisation, only 69% of Leave voters want a no-deal Brexit. Now, whatever left...
We're not having a no-deal Brexit, Femi. That's off the table.
Well, the point is they want some... Well, they said that 69% of Leave voters want a no-deal Brexit. So you leave whatever's left for Boris Johnson's deal. That means that you haven't got the majority for any version of Brexit. That is the point. If you have many Leave voters under Nigel Farage saying this is not Brexit, this is not the will of the people, then that means that only a minority want Boris Johnson's deal.
So you're now a Nigel's... So Femi, look, Femi, I put it to you, right? I put it to you, and I'm being genuine here, right? I put it to you that you now have an extremist position on Brexit.
Okay. What? Because I'm saying that we shouldn't do something that the majority oppose.
Because you're now wanting to team up with Nigel Farage to make points against very, very clear-minded, sensible people like me who are right in the middle of this debate, just wanting to bring the country together. And you're so opposed to bringing the country together, you would rather use arguments, because you've done it now 2 or 3 times over the course of this interview, you would rather use arguments of Nigel Farage, who is diametrically opposed to what you want.
It's about democracy. If there isn't a majority...
But we had a democratic referendum in 2016, Femi.
Sir,
17.4 million people voted to leave. You lost.
Sir, let's do the basic math here. 52% voted for Brexit, right?
Yes.
Then you've got a significant portion of those who now vote Brexit Party or in line with Nigel Farage. If you subtract them who are opposed to this deal from the 52%, you do not get the majority. This is basic math here.
Femi, this is ridiculous. You have no idea if Brexit Party voters are opposed to this deal or not.
Well, we've already seen from the Brexit Party that they're saying people don't want the deal. So we're clearly there is no. What evidence is there that anybody? I mean, most people haven't even read this deal yet.
So Femi, let's look forward. What happens other than you crying into your champagne tomorrow night? What happens to you and your movement if this deal passes tomorrow? Do you become a rejoin campaign?
Ultimately, to be honest, if this deal goes through, my job is to watch as the people who are in favour of no deal scream that this isn't the will of the people, and I'll be basically watching Nigel Farage do my job for me because he'll be proving the point that Brexit voters wanted many incompatible outcomes, and I'll be watching, and then we'll see what happens afterwards.
Will you ever give up this campaign and accept that Brexit has happened?
Well, if Brexit happens, then Brexit has happened.
But will you ever give up the campaign once it happens? If
Brexit happens, we're out of the EU. So then any issue around Brexit is about rejoining the EU, and that's something that, well, if Boris Johnson's deal goes through, then we have until the end of 2020 where we stay more or less in line with the EU, status quo, following the rules with no say, and then afterwards there's a chance that we just basically fall off the edge with a no deal after that. Now, under those circumstances, that's when you would actually start to feel the real hard economic effects of Brexit. And ultimately, that is a choice that is a lesson that people are just going to have to learn, because half of the cars you make go to the EU, half of the fish we catch goes to the EU.
Is this the mission of your life, Femi? Will you still be talking about this in 20 years' time?
I hope to God not. But the point is, in any version of Brexit, we haven't negotiated that long-term trade deal yet, which means 7 to 10 years of negotiating with the EU. I don't want to be having to have this discussion in 7 to 10 years. People are bored of Brexit. Yes, that is the one thing.
And are you going to be on your march tomorrow?
Pardon?
Are you going to be on your little march tomorrow?
I'll be on the march tomorrow, yeah.
Okay. And what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I'm hoping they're going to vote. The Parliament's going to vote down the deal.
Time will tell. Femi Oluwole, campaigner from Our Future, Our Choice. Ian is in North Lincolnshire. Ian, what do you think of Boris's deal?
Hi there. I think it's as good as we're going to get, to be honest.
Absolutely.
The European Union have done the best to make it as hard as possible. And they had a really good motive because they don't want to lose all the money we put in. And they've had such a lot of help from these Remainer MPs who've done everything the EU wanted them to effectively. One of the things my main point when I asked to speak was, I just get so fed up of the Trotsky triangle, Karma, Corbyn and McDonnell, quoting out these things about if we'll lose workers' rights, we'll lose out with the environment. Why?
And also, we have the ability to make our own laws. That's the whole point. If we leave,
why should leaving the EU have an effect on workers' rights? We've always had good workers' rights. Sometimes we've had too many. In the early days when the unions were too powerful. But I mean, we've got a decent balance now, I think. And I can't see anyone saying that, right, we're going to do this, we're going to take away holidays or whatever
Well, no, exactly. And if Labour get into government, Ian, then actually the fact that we have left the EU, or hopefully will have left the EU by then, gives them more opportunity to institute whatever laws they want.
Yeah, but that won't happen, will it? Because they don't want an election, so they won't get into government, so they're just going to sit there.
Well, it's a very weird position that they've taken on all of this. And the fact that they don't even have the wherewithal or the numbers to be able to look at an amendment calling for this deal to only pass if it's connected to a second referendum sort of shows you a little bit where Labour's at. And by the way, I clearly don't want it to pass connected to the idea of a second referendum. But the point is, they've had 3 years, Ian, and they still haven't been able to get their ducks in a row on Brexit.
No, none of them. And the other thing is, it's such a democratic problem, isn't it? You've got someone said the trading standards should be called in about the Liberal Democrats, calling themselves Democrats. But it is democracy, isn't it? We did vote. Whatever the outcome, if we have an election, we vote. And if the Labour Party gets in or the Tories get in, you just can't say, well, oh no, we didn't like that. We want another election because Labour didn't get in or Tories didn't get in. You vote. That's democracy. And once you've voted, the people have said they want A, B, or C, or whatever the decision. That's it.
Exactly. Get with the programme. Move on. Great call, Ian from North Lincolnshire. Thank you so much. Time now for the entertainment hit list. I'm joined by entertainment specialist Lizzie Cundy and the actor Alex Reid. Gosh, it's so great to have you both here. Alex, it's been a long time since I've seen you. I know we're going to be talking to you lots about everything going on with you, including your new film, The Seven, after the break. But what do you make of what Ricky Lake was saying about I guess, that suicide and mental health issues actually can turn into a positive thing, Alex, if you use it in the right way in your life?
I didn't actually hear that interview. I do have a lot of strong opinions. I've lost 4 very close friends
I know
to
you
PTSD.
have. I know you have.
I've suffered with myself. I don't talk about it. And that's the thing. You need to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because it's people my age are the biggest sufferers of suicide.
Yes.
And we don't talk about it. Big boys don't cry.
No, and there shouldn't be any shame attached.
And listen, the reason why I don't talk about it, some of the things that my friends have witnessed being soldiers are horrific. And I think, how can I compare? But it doesn't mean what I'm suffering I'm still suffering. And that's the thing. But as men, we don't cry. We're tough. But we still got rubbish to deal with.
Absolutely.
I shouldn't say rubbish, but I mean,
no, I know what you mean.
We think it's rubbish. I'm all right. And we need to talk about that. And I talked a friend out of suicide last week. God. It's so common.
And that's because you were talking.
Yeah.
And if he hadn't been talking, because Lizzie, we went through this with our good friend Mike Thalasitis, who took his own life earlier this year. Some people would know him as Muggy Mike from Love Island. And Lizzie, we were at that funeral just thinking, why didn't he talk to us? Or all of the friends who he had there.
I know, and we'd been with him just a few weeks before at the National Telly Awards. He'd been in touch with me, talking about his new restaurant. Everything seemed to be going well for him.
There were no signs.
No signs, didn't talk.
I've studied this backwards. We live in a society where fame is a drug.
Yes.
And people want that outside adulation and acceptance and validation from something not inside themselves.
Yes.
And when you're searching for that, you're never going to accept yourself and you're always going to be lonely. And all we really want, listen, I've had over 300 fights. I've mixed with I've gone to some really dark places.
As well as an actor, you were originally a cage fighter.
Yeah, I was a professional athlete for many, many years. And all I wanted, we were mixing all these circles, was proof, evidence. I wanted a pat on the back. All I wanted was love. Love. And that, if that's why I say to people, we just need to it sounds hippie gay in a great way. Let's start smiling at people, start being nice, start talking,
But isn't the message, though, Alex, that you might think fame and money will make you happy, but in fact, and Lizzie, I'm sure you've had experience with this, in fact, usually, Alex, the most famous and the most rich people can be the most unhappy.
Absolutely. And I've tried to emulate my sports heroes, my actors, and I look at they've achieved success, money. Actually, they're not happy with themselves.
Absolutely.
And you're never going to be happy.
Alex, so great to have you here. Before we talk about your movie, I have to express massive sympathy for you. Last month, you revealed on Instagram in a post which has got so many people talking in such an important way about the terrible, terrible news that yourself and your fiancée, Nikki, who is an IVF blogger, have actually suffered your 5th loss of a baby, which must just be devastating.
Well, yeah, it is. But law of attraction, and this can mix people. I take it for granted that we're having a child. People say you take it for granted, and so I do, because the reason I say that, we're going to have a child. And as sad as it is, and it's very sad, you know, I get knocked out, I get knocked down, but I get up again. I'm going to keep going. We are going to have a child, and that's the only way I can be.
Positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's extremely sad. I mean, it's diabolical. We have to go through a lot of different things that people do take for granted. But I take it for granted that we're going to have, literally, over the road, we've been in Guys. We've been here struggling to find this place. And I keep coming here all the time to go and have all sorts of tests.
The hospital is just across the road. Yeah. But you really want to be a dad?
Yeah, I am a dad. But I want to have another child with my gorgeous fiancée, more than anything in the world. And it really makes you realise what life's all about.
Yeah. Puts everything in perspective, doesn't it?
For so long, I thought there's got to be more to life than just getting up and going to work and having kids. But now, actually, no. I want a child more than anything. Do you want a child?
I don't know. I always used to think I did. And, you know, the older I get, Alex, the more selfish I am.
How young are you?
He's
I'm
young.
36.
He's young.
What about
How old are you now, Alex?
Listen, I'm one of those girls that don't age, like a fossil.
Lizzie's
no, but I've got
66.
2 boys. Listen, they're my life. I just, my biggest
One of them
accomplishment.
works in this building.
It does indeed. You know, I'm so proud of them, and it's my life. So. But so, Alex, you will. I love your positive thinking.
No, it's absolutely great. And the other thing I had to talk to you about, Alex, because it has made headlines recently as well. And, you know, we've spoken about this a lot, of course. Your ex-wife is Katie Price, the model known as Jordan. And she has been very negative about her ex-husbands in the past week. She posted on Instagram saying, "They have become Mr. Prices, tried to be famous, end up getting Instagram posts off the back of me, getting all jobs from me and being able to earn money from stories and all that with always mentioning my name." She said, "All my ex-husbands," remember that's Peter Andre as well as yourself, "all my ex-husbands, they had absolutely nothing at all when I met them." How would you respond to Katie Price?
I thought to myself, I heard you call me Katie Price's ex. A part of me said, I'm not going to come on this show.
Really?
That bad. And I thought, no, I need to be bigger than this. I had a life way beyond that lady. Well, I use the term loosely. I was an actor, and we had an argument. Not an argument. Me and Dan, we just had the discussion about, you say I come to the public eye because of her. Maybe. But that's not the sort of public I want. And I was a diligent athlete, had over 300 competitions. The money I made from fighting, I used to fund me to go to Guildford School of Acting, one of the best acting schools in the country. I tread the boards.
So why is she saying this about you? Because she is the one that's doing this.
Alex, stick up for yourself.
I had a great...
Because I just
you
feel
off
your
to
voice.
protest too much as well, though. You can, you know, if you shout too much, like... I want to be, like, again, a big man. Like, why do I need to talk about all this sort of stuff? But, of course, this is ridiculous. I'm here to talk about a film I was doing. I will, but I want to address this now. Yeah. I believe I'm starting to thrive again as an actor. Yeah. No longer as an athlete. I'm a little bit more mature these days, so body doesn't quite do what it wants to do.
Well, it's looking good.
Oh, thank you. But, yeah, man, I worked so blooming hard to put myself on the map as an athlete, as an actor, and in the entertainment industry before I even understood really what reality TV was.
So you're angry with Katie Price?
I'm not angry. I have not a revengeful bone in my body.
You're disappointed?
I would... I love my life, and I've got good people around me. I don't concentrate on Katie Price.
Why does she keep writing about you then? She's still in love with you.
You're trying to. I don't want to talk about this.
Okay. I want to talk about the movie. I want to talk about the movie because the movie is called Seven. It stars one of the hunky actors of the 90s who I love so much, Dean Cain,
I love
who
him.
was Superman. Right. What a great guy.
Handsome man.
Yeah. So what was it like working with him?
To tell you the truth, I only met him like briefly once.
Because you're in different scenes, are you?
Yeah, and I'm his henchman, his like right hand man. I do all the naughty work. It was just, I was on the set for like 4 or 5 days, and I did my scenes and I was out. So I didn't really see a lot of him, to tell you the truth. So that acting could be like that. You often you get two mega superstars and they don't actually meet on the set. I just put myself as a mega superstar. There you go.
But you asked, can I just say though,
There you
Alex, what I love, Alex is such a nice guy. Remember he won Big Brother, and I used to say, people say, God, I didn't realise he was going to be like that. Yeah, Celebrity Big Brother. And people used to read about you, and it wasn't you. It was like...
And they would make a judgment.
And they would make a judgment. And when you won that show, I thought, yes, at last, people can see the really lovely, nice guy that you are.
We live in such a fickle... Listen, I never wanted to be famous for... how I have become famous.
So you want to do acting because you love acting, you love the art.
Absolutely love becoming somebody else. Getting into emotions is extremely cathartic. When you understand the problems and the emotions of somebody else, you start to understand yourself, and it's actually so freeing. When you got crap going on in your life, it's a great way to escape and to this is great, and you start to feel better about yourself weirdly.
And
that could also be dangerous. You can see people who get so obsessed.
Absolutely.
And Heath Ledger. I mean, I've actually when I was doing
don't go down that path.
When I was doing Hollyoaks,
what's it called? It's called. There's a type of acting that's called method acting.
So I start to, and it's so when you become somebody else, there's the puppet and the puppet master. The puppeteer is, and you're the puppet. When it's scary. It's you're unveiling. It's your whole emotions to an audience, and it's scary.
Well, keep that in check because you've got enough going on in your life.
And you're a talent. You're a talented actor.
And
Alex.
so Alex, when is this movie out? 7. When can we see it?
Well, the premiere's next. I couldn't tell you that.
Next week, I think the premiere is.
Yeah.
And so it must be out soon after that.
Yes. But the funny thing is, when he asked me to come on it, I thought I just did another film in the exact same location. Telepathy. Well, that's the working title. It's called. I shouldn't be talking about that, but I was confused because I've done 4 films since 7, and I'm like, I had to, and 2 plays.
Wow.
Award-winning plays, and I'm like, I don't talk about this too much because I'm saying less and doing more, letting my actions do the speaking. Yeah. I'm not anti-celebrity, but I try to keep out the papers now, and especially for the salacious headlines.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be celebrated. I mean,
Lizzie's had a few of them.
I've had of late, I'm afraid, a few of the wrong headlines. Yeah, but anyway.
Oh well, look,
we're both.
You're survivors.
We're survivors.
You're survivors, Alex.
No, we're thrivers.
Oh, I love
like
it.
that.
Now.